Hello, everyone. Phil Turek here. This is just an episode about a few articles and things going on here in early June. Today is June 4th, 2025, and the title of this episode is just Early June. In the future, there will be a vibrant, self-sustaining human civilization on Mars. The high road to Mars is one built on a foundation of gracious professionalism, the bedrock ethos of the first robotics competition. The earthbound dreamers of today, who are working to open the high road to a future Martian civilization, are the ancestors of tomorrow's Martians. I'm Phil Turek, one such ancestral Martian. Look at what I'm trying to do by creating simulated Martian cultural ambassadors to act as positive social influencers to somewhat depolarize society here in the United States. Imagine how much even better it would be if the United States were to bring real Martian ambassadors here. So there were three articles of interest to me that I wanted to share with you a little bit about. Here we go. But first, just a reminder, our current leader uh, claims himself to be a stable genius, and I've had to work with a student like this once, and I just don't agree with his self-assessment. So, just a reminder, there were some pretty devastating wildfires in Southern California in January, and as soon as he became president, our current leader ordered, he said, okay, there's this big valve that connects Northern California to Southern California. And the governor should have just opened the valve and let the water come south so that they could put out the fires. There is no such valve. But when he became president, he ordered the Army Corps of Engineers to open up the water on a couple of irrigation dams in California, claiming that this will, help put out the fires, which were already out. They weren't contained, which you need to look up what that means, the difference. But the point is this, he didn't consult with anyone. He didn't fact check. No one corrected him about how he's wasting irrigation water that's needed for the summer for the farmers who voted for him to grow their crops. So he's not the stable genius he claims. Uh, he has to constantly create chaos so that within all the chaos, you have to turn to him hoping that he's the only person who sees the way out of the chaos. That's it. That's the purpose of creating the chaos. It's not because it's going to anything that's actually better. Although, randomly speaking, if you put 100 monkeys on 100 typewriters for 100 years, you get something. So his actions occasionally have beneficial effects, in my opinion, but overall, it's just horrible. Okay, so here's one article I wanted to share. Headline, this is from the New York Times. So back in April, China has stopped rare earth metal exports. And I know from past articles and studies that this is a big, big deal. They threatened to do this once to the United States, and the United States caved in right away. Oh, a few administrations ago, I believe. And it's because we rely on it. It's such a critical material for us. And it's significant that we are, as a nation, without access to these Chinese resources, we our technology is going to no longer advance in a way that could keep up with our competition in China. Okay, so here's a sobering statement clipped from the article. It says, uh, we had an embargo in 2010 that would have made it during the Bush administration. No, that would have been Obama administration, I think, already. First term. And what happens? Look at the last sentence. China has 39 universities with rare earths training programs, while the United States has none. Okay, game over. We almost don't have access to the materials themselves. The main mines are in China and Myanmar, I think. You could read the article. But even if we had access to the materials, we don't have the ability to process it the way the Chinese do to get it ready to use in our applications. And that difference means as technology continues to evolve and advance, the United States can't keep up uh, with China because we're relying on Chinese materials to compete with China. So, uh, ouch. And, that's going to be a significant factor in the technological decline of the United States, along with everything else going on. So, here's another article. This one's from yesterday. And what I want to share with you is just like the last part of it says how Trump is using some old tricks to intimidate his critics into silence. And it's about how technically the government isn't using crude methods to try to stifle free speech, First Amendment rights in the United States, but they're doing these other techniques that do work. And so here's kind of a closing statement from the article. You're encouraged to read the whole thing. When government beneficiaries agree to say what the president wants, okay, so when government intimidates speakers to silence themselves, and when the government sharpens its own speech into propaganda, no censorship happens. But in all those scenarios, the government is doing exactly what justifies fear of censorship and what First Amendment law exists to prevent, using official power to make speech less free. And in the article, this researcher goes through the specifics of, uh, lawyers, law firms, how they had to make deals because the president doesn't like who they represented, how the government is persecuting non-US citizens who are exercising free speech, like the Free Palestine group. There's a caution on that. This week's headlines include an Egyptian who overstayed his visa in the US who firebombed some Jews who were just doing a vigil uh, for the release of their own hostages being held in the Middle East. Okay, great, as in not great. But criticizing hardcore Israeli settlers who view uh, Palestinians as inferior and undeserving of their own land. Uh, uh, Maybe it's fair to criticize people who behave that way. Just saying. Okay, but so here's this article, and it's showing that free speech is really not, is under stress. But people felt that free speech was under stress when it was woke ideology that said, oh man, you should respect that person's da 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 and this and that, and you shouldn't use. And those people feel like, oh, it's fresh air, I can now speak my mind. Whereas the other half of the country feels like, oh, you can't speak your mind now. So it's interesting how neither side feels happy when the other side's in control. But I do want to point out one scary things, the last bit here is when the government sharpens its own speech into propaganda. So this whole business of, oh, let's go and ban what books are in government libraries at military installations and change what's being displayed at the museums, federal government museums. That's, it's not right. Okay, there's my comment. Now, locally speaking, is it sex education or porn? Huntington Beach comes to blows over library books. So here's another article from just yesterday. And I live in Huntington Beach, and this is an issue. And I did go to the town council meeting. So there's some things in this article I just feel like sharing with you that I think are generically true, not just for our current situation, where I'm ready to turn in my ballot, by the way. All right. So here's a quote from Natalie Mosier. It's just a war being waged on the community by people in an attempt to gain power. Okay. And it's a partisan fight. People are easier to manipulate when they're divided, when they don't see each other as people, but just another side. And gosh, if that isn't what's going on a national scale. Here's my coffee cup. People trying to gain power by dividing the nation and by dividing the community. Those are the people who don't really deserve to be in power. Why is that so hard to figure out? All right, what else? The optimists hope that the locals finally get, fed up with this and try to get the city council to do what the city council should do. And here it mentions, public safety, road maintenance, economic development. What does attacking our cherished public library do to advance any of those things? Nothing. It's trying to divide the community to gain power. It's trying to go back to that previous slide about how the government is trying to shape the narrative to create its own propaganda through government entities. And that's what these guys are doing now. And I don't know if you can read the last little code at the bottom. I can't quite on my screen, but that's why you get to read on your own, right? Okay, from the same article. This is almost like attacking what is an American. We weren't just these white guys with high principles and moral standards. We weren't. We were a collection of a whole bunch of different groups, 11 major subgroups if you go with one of my previous website links. And we established that there should be a separation of church and state, that we should respect others in whatever form others are. A nation is a political work in progress that anyone should be allowed to participate in. Okay, what else did they say here? The library is not a winner-take-all thing like an election, she said, pointing out this current city council is trying to treat everybody as subject to winner take all, and it's MAGA and MAGA take all. They want to put a MAGA um, plaque on the library, although they renamed it so that it doesn't say Make America Great Again, but it's still MAGA, and the council is pure MAGA in their identity. But libraries are storehouses of collective knowledge, like the internet, okay? Wikipedia, YouTube, where you could, find 11-year-old to explain just about anything to you. Just about anything, right? That's how libraries should be as well, in written form as well as online access. Okay, so I think that's my last slide. It is. And this ends my great short talk for early June. Hope things are going well for you, and farewell.